to uplift ourselves, to realize ourselves, maintains its potency. At all times, in fact most times, this thought gets camouflaged, diluted, it loses its potency. So an opportunity like this or a study of this nature helps us to remind us the very purpose of life. And these few salient verses hit the nail on the head. It gives us a knock on our back and say, come on, you got to, you can't relax, you can't afford to waste any more time. So there's enough material there for us to study further, inspire us further. There's enough material there. So we would start with the dhyana shlokas. In fact, you wouldn't have that, so we requested you all to get along your books on the symbolism of Hindu gods. We will just pick up one mantra from there. But the whole objective, as what I just said, is just an idea. What you will get is many ideas here. But the whole objective of our study is what this is. We are reading not to contradict or confute, not to believe or not to take it for granted, not to find talk and discourse, but to weigh and consider. The whole objective is, when you leave these ideas with you, would you weigh and consider this as an objective, as a purpose, as a direction to your life? This is the whole exercise. And if it doesn't serve the purpose, I would believe this exercise is futile. It is just another exercise which has no meaning or no purpose. But if this exercise helps you to reconsider, weigh and consider the entire objective, so this study becomes a prominent aspect of your life. The objective of the study becomes the purpose of your life, which is to self-develop or ultimately to self-realize yourself. So it only serves that purpose alone, nothing other than that. Okay, so we will chant the third verse, which is, there's a beautiful message there in the third verse of the Dhyana Shlokas. We'll chant once. Singham, would you mind passing the cordless mic to Swarna?
Where is it?
The section Dhyana Shlokas.
Page 137.
Page
137.
Page 137, verse 3.
प्रपन्न पारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। प्रपन्न पारिजाताय स्तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः।
Salutation to Krishna, who holds a cane in one hand and shows the Jnana Mudra, the symbol of wisdom, with the other. Who is the Parijata, the tree of fulfillment, to those who surrender to him, who has milked the nectar of the Gita. So this verse is paying homage, prostrating, thanksgiving to the hero of the Gita, which is Lord Krishna himself. So how is he qualifying Krishna? How is he describing Krishna? He is describing Krishna as he had the Jnana Mudra in one hand and he had the cane in the other. This is how he is describing. He held a cane in one hand and a Jnana Mudra in the other. So you have the choice either to follow the cane or the Jnana Mudra. Now every verse in the Jnana Shlokas, you can take a devotional approach or an intellectual approach. I'll take the intellectual approach. Krishna means black, means dark, means unknown. So self is unknown to us. The word very Krishna literally means that. And the cane, Krishna was a cowherd boy. So his job was to take the cattle to the pasture lands, to allow them to graze. And having let them graze, he would bring them back. And what do cattle do? They have this tendency of, they regurgitate the food and they cut through. So you either do that. So what is taking the cattle to their respective pasture lands? It's all symbolic. Literally it doesn't mean anything. So what it means is the cattle here symbolizes the senses. Taking the cattle to their pasture lands means you take your senses to their respective pasture lands for their sense gratification. You allow the senses to indulge as much as you want, and having indulged, the cattle come back end of the day and they have the tendency to, as I said, to regurgitate and cut through. That process or that tendency is called lingering. So you have one path, in effect is in two parts. One path is you take the path of a material or a sensual person who gets into the world with the only objective of relishing, enjoying, indulging in the world. And having indulged in the joys of the world, they relive the pleasures they gain, whatever they have gained from the sensual pursuits. Either you do that, or you follow the Jnana Mudra. The Jnana Mudra, it all starts with this way, remember. The pointing finger, in fact, if you start with this, like when you point a gun, when you point your ego, this is ego, the pointing finger, when you point out to the world, that is an attitude of an, if I were to point this finger, which we often do, is an attitude of an extroverted person. An extroverted person who's looking outward. And when you look outward, what do you realize? What do you end up with?
Find faults with others.
Perfect. And there are plenty of faults, plenty to correct outside, isn't it? In fact, there is a saying, it is easier to find faults in others, even if it's a indecimal speck. But it is very difficult to find the same fault within you, even though it is magnified a million times. The same fault. It's easier to pick up a minor flaw in another person, but the same flaw in you is very difficult to pick up. Can you tell me why? It is very easy to find fault in others. It's very difficult to detect, identify the same flaw multifold times within you. Why is it? It's a fact of life. Any idea, Ruben? Doctor? There are two Rubens here, so I'll have to...
Both students.
Murali, any idea?
No, senses are more extroverted.
So senses are at the mercy of what drives them. What drives your senses? It's not the senses that are pointing out mistake. It is your subtle body, your mind and intellect. They are focused outward. So the question is, why is it difficult to identify the flaw within oneself? But it's very easy to identify it elsewhere. Perhaps you can discuss this in the groups. I wouldn't want to waste time there. Discuss in the groups. Why is it easier to find faults in others, but difficult to find it within ourselves? So if you point the finger, that ego, which is pointing to the world, there's a symbolic saying that the three fingers are pointing within, which means there is a flaw at all levels of your personality. There is threefold mistake within you, but you fail to realize it because your attention is outward. And at the same time, there is a gap from the pointing finger to the thumb. So thumb symbolizes the self. And thumb is the most essential aspect in the palm. In fact, if the thumb is injured or thumb finished, your whole arm is redundant, useless. You can't do anything. You can't hold a pen, you can't do anything without a thumb. So thumb symbolizes the self. So when the ego is separated from the self, the three fingers are naturally pointing inward, means the flaw is within you. But when the ego turns towards the self, means when you take the path of introversion, when you take an introverted path, contrary to the extroverted path is going outward towards the world, you take the path contrary, which is the ego slowly turning towards the self, you see the whole thing changes. When the ego is turning towards the self, naturally these fingers turn upward. The movement is like this, naturally. So when the ego unites with the thumb, there is a circle, which means you have hit the self. The circle has no beginning nor end. You have hit the infinity. So Krishna is saying, either you want to follow the senses to their pasture lands, to indulge a life of materiality or sensuality, which is an extrovert path, or you follow the path of introversion, which is trying to unite with the self. So, who holds a cane in one hand and shows the jnana mudra, the symbol of wisdom, with the other, with just that, there's so much meaning there. Who is the parijata? Now parijata refers to the tree of fulfillment. There's also a reference to Kamadhenu. There's also the mythological cow of the great celestial sage Vashishta, celebrated sage, Vashishta. He had a mythological cow, which is said to be the fulfiller of all desires. Whatever you desire, whatever you grant is fulfilled. So much so, remember, I don't know, Shailesh, Ram, remember we were talking, and Shailesh we were talking something, and he made a statement, you better watch out what you ask for. The moment you wish it, the scriptures they say, the mere sankalpa means a thought. The mere thought, the mere wish, it is fulfilled. You ask for it, it's done. When does that happen? Mere thought, a mere idea. It will be good if I have that. Instantly it is made available for you. Providence provides for you in its own mysterious ways and means. Thing comes. Life provides you with it. When does it happen? I don't know whether you have experienced this in life. It is not even a desire, please. It's a mild wish, as it were. You just say, I wish I had that. And I was just sharing this experience, nothing great about it. I was sharing, in fact, 6 years ago, we had the first retreat in Fraser's Hills, the first Vedanta retreat here. And I was so captured by the whole atmosphere, the sanctity and the poise and the non-commercialism. And it's such a beautiful scenic getaway, a couple of hours drive away. So I was just telling all the students, it's a beautiful place. It'll be good if you have a place here, It's nice to come once in a while. I just mentioned casually to all the students. Next week I had a key in my hand. Till now I have the key, the apartment is right there. And it's available to any one of you. I've offered that to everyone. Anybody wants to, not for a holiday, you want to come and do a spiritual study, it's available. Thank you very much. I can come with my family caravan, bring along. No, not for that. Somebody provided for our spiritual study, so I come here often. I used to come more often, but now not that often. I used to come every week on my own. Just come, steady, and ideal atmosphere. So I was telling them, and he said this, the mere thought of it is fulfilled. It's done. And the owner has not come there for past 7 years. The keys are with me. He can't access because access cards are with me. So people ask me, are you the owner? I say, yes, I'm the owner. I'm not the owner. So this is what it means. So the question is, when you merely ask, even a mere thought, Balaji, it's done. There's a degree, obviously. It's not necessary that everything you ask for comes. But what is the law which governs that? Then he says that here. Who is the Parijata? He says. What is the Parijata? What is that tree of fulfillment? What is the Kamadhenu? Which gives you all your wishes. All your wishes are granted. Whatever you want is provided for your well-being. Otherwise, you strive and struggle and sweat and work and no assurance you get that object what you desire for. Isn't it? Life may not give whatever you desire in life. So you always would end up with, chances are you end up with disappointments, you complain and you envy at those who have, I wish I had. That's sort of a mindset. So what is the Parijata? I'm sure all of us want this Parijata, isn't it? We all are supplying Parijata in this retreat. You won't go and ask the organizer, where's the seed please? We want to plant that seed in the backyard. What is that Parijata? I'm using the words because he uses it. What is the tree of fulfillment? Who gets the tree of fulfillment? Kala? I am self-realized. Think about it. I'm just an example. Don't go about saying yes because of that. It's like this. Not at all. Way before you reach self-realization. Way before. There's nothing to do with self-realization. Self-realization, in fact, the culmination. In fact, we've got to be very careful how we use that term realization because it's the pinnacle of perfection. Here we are talking about your objects of desire paying, in fact, objects of desire paying homage to you. The objects of desire come to you and say, please enjoy me, please possess me, please have me. This is the Parijata. So what has this got to do with self-realization? Okay, tell me what is the contrary to this? Please, anybody who don't follow what it is, please raise your hand and draw my attention. I can clarify, please. No, don't be lost, please. What is the opposite of objects paying homage to you?
Chase it.
Attachment.
Chase the object.
Chase the object. Sorry?
Attachment.
Craving. Attachment comes after possessing. It is a sheer craving, the wanting, the lust for procuring and enjoying. That's sort of a greed, an obsession that drives you towards them. And when you do that, what happens? The object moves which direction? Further away from you, not towards you. Here, the object turns towards you and as it were seeking permission. Can you please have me? Relative and absolute, please. But when this, what is it that governs or changes the whole way the object turns, whether away from you or towards you? The answer is there in the verse itself. In the translation itself is there. Those who surrender to Him. Him is what? Refers to the self, Krishna, a higher. The law of life is when you serve a higher cause, the lower objects come onto you. So being spiritual, being in the spiritual path is nothing but to rise above the desire. And each one of us right now are possessed and consumed by some desire which you are wishing to get fulfilled. And you wish, the sooner it is, the blissful your life is. And the whole spiritual exercise is to just be unmindful to that desire which is bothering you right now. Just be unmindful to it, and can you put it aside and seek something higher? That is the whole objective of spiritual path. A person who has no desires, there is no problem. We all have desires. And yet, can you all weigh and consider this objective of trying to uplift yourself? Which is what Sir Francis Bacon said. Just to weigh and consider, is it worth pursuing this objective of self-realization? If not self-realization, self-development, which means I got to put aside these desires and these pursuits. Put aside. And seek the higher. And the moment you do that, what happens? The objects of desire come to you. When do they come to you? When you follow the cane or the Jnana Mudra? Jnana Mudra. You follow the cane, the objects are running further away from you. You switch to the Jnana Mudra, instantly they come towards you. This is a law of life. And the more you pursue this path, the more it's evident how true they are saying. And then he says, he who has milked the Gita, and which is clarified in the next verse, which we can't get into it. So he says, Krishna is the one who actually gave out the Gita, gave out the knowledge of the self. He says the cow is the Upanishad, the milk is the Gita. And he says, Arjuna is the calf. Calf doesn't get the milk. Which calf gets the milk knowledge? Calf doesn't. So Arjuna didn't get the Gita. Who is getting the Gita? We wise people. But he had to milk the Gita, milk the cow. The cow is the Upanishads. The Gita is the essence of the Upanishads. In fact, essence in sense, it is the explained truths of the Upanishads. So milk is the Gita, the Upanishads is the cow, the milkman is Krishna, Arjuna is the calf. Who is getting the milk? We all are getting the milk. So let's make the most of it. Take as much milk as you want and go back. As much Gita you can take it. So this is a classic verse from the Jnana Sloka. So we'll get on to the first verse of chapter 1. You all have been provided with the verses.
धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय धृतराष्ट्र उवाच धर्मक्षेत्रे कुरुक्षेत्रे समवेतायुयुत्सवः मामकाः पाण्डवाश्चैव किमकुर्वत सञ्जय
Dhritarashtra Uvacha. Dhritarashtra said, Dhritarashtra is the father of the Kaurava brothers. You know, the Bhagavad Gita is a conversation between Lord Krishna and Arjuna. What triggered off the battle was the conflict between the two royal cousins, which is the Kauravas and the Pandavas. And Dhritarashtra was the father of the Kaurava 100 brothers, and the Pandavas are the 5 in number, the virtuous. So the king, Dhritarashtra was a king, and he starts the Gita, the famous verse, Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yuyutsava. Assembled on the sacred field of Kurukshetra, desire is to fight. What did the sons of Pandu and mine do, O Sanjaya? Dharma kshetre kurukshetra. The whole message of the Gita is, in fact, the whole situation the society is in, which was conceived or perhaps projected way back. Dharma Kshetra has become a Kurukshetra. Dharma Kshetra means a land of peace and poise and happiness has become a Kurukshetra, a land of conflict, bitterness, otherness, unhappiness, dissatisfaction, discontentment. So the whole kshetra has changed. Kshetra means land. A land of sweetness, a land of piety has become a land of conflict. What land is talking about? What kshetra is talking about? Is it? Dharma kshetra has become Kurukshetra. What is the kshetra here referring to? The mind. It is not out there. Our mind has become into a battlefield where there is turmoil, there is a conflict. So the objective of the Gita is to change that Kurukshetra back into Dharma kshetra. To convert that state of agitation into a state of peace and happiness. How to transform, how to get back to that state is the whole Gita. And that conflict, the conflict is eternal conflict between the good and the bad. There's a constant conflict between the good and the bad, between the negative propensities and the positive propensities in an individual at all times. There's a strange observation and there's a true observation. The negative propensities in an individual are far outnumber the positive at any point of time. The negative propensities are far more than the positive, which is symbolized by the 100 Kaurava brothers and the 5 Pandava brothers. That's the reason why the weak, in fact the negative people need number, the positive people don't need numbers. The positive don't need strength. 5 fellows handled and conquered 100 fellows. You didn't need 100 righteous fellows, virtuous fellows to handle 100 vicious fellows. 5 virtuous fellows handled the 100 vicious. So the virtuous qualities depend on the quality. Vis-a-vis the vicious depend on the quantity. So you don't have to worry. Oh, what am I to do if the negative are always greater than the positive? Not to worry, because the negative gains strength with numbers. The positive don't need the strength. But if you are able to give it an environment where these positive can flourish, then they can counter the negative. But if the environment and the natural environment is, if you carefully observe around us, you need to do a lot of effort to create a conducive environment like this. A lot of effort. It is not easy to even have a class like this here. Not easy. But the environment out there is designed for our image. Now I get the facts from you all. The environment out there is designed for our enjoyment.
Sense environment.
Sense indulgence. The truth comes out. So that's why I'm pausing the blank. I left it purposely blank. Fully meant for
Negative desires.
Destruction.
negative desires, destruction.
Downfall.
Our own downfall. There's nothing out there for your constructive nature to build you. Nothing out there. Unless you know how to use it. So if you are not careful, your downfall is very natural. That's what I'm saying. As the saying, simple thing is, to be indisciplined, you don't have to put in effort, isn't it? Effortlessly you can be indisciplined. Effortlessly you can be influenced by negative factors, but not to be influenced by negative factors, you got to put in a lot of effort. Phenomenal effort. But the moment you put that little effort, the good are strong enough to protect you. You don't need the numbers. So you remember that. So what you need to do is that little effort to give that conducive environment for these good qualities to manifest. The moment you do that, you are okay. So the whole Dharma Kshetra, which has become a Kurukshetra, so the objective is to get back to Dharma Kshetra. And the first verse of the Gita, which is the verse we are doing now, starts with Dharma. And the 18th chapter, the last verse, the 78th verse of the 18th chapter, also we will be doing. So if you refer to the last verse, if you flip the back page and read the last word of the 18th chapter, you read you all have a leaflet. Refer to the leaflet. The last word, what's the last word of the last chapter? Chapter 18, verse 78, last word. Huh? You all see that? Ruben, you see that? The last. What's the last word, Ruben? Sanskrit word. Yeah. Can you read the Sanskrit word? Mama. What you all call mama shop. Something similar, huh? No, that's different, huh? No, the opposite different, you know. So, mama. So the entire Gita, so the first word starts with dharma, the last word ends with mama. So the Gita is as it were sandwiched between these two words, dharma, mama. Mama, dharma. What is my dharma? What is my nature? What is your nature? Our natural state is to be happy. Our natural state is to be contented. Our natural state is to be blissful and peaceful. Therefore, there is a constant attempt, constant effort to get back to that state, which is an indication that we have lost our state. Therefore, the word yoga or religion is just nothing but the effort you get back to your own original state. It's called yoga in Sanskrit, it's called religion in English. So the Gita is trying to give back your real self to you, which is to find that, to be in that dharma kshetra, to be in that peace and quiet. So the moment you have lost your happiness, the moment you're disturbed, you will put in every attempt to get back your happiness, isn't it? You don't want to be comfortable in a disturbed state. Would you want to be? You're agitated, something bothers you. You're very annoyed, you lost your peace. Would you be comfortable with that? A day or a few minutes later, you will be uncomfortable, you get very annoyed at yourself. Why am I getting agitated? Isn't it? Wouldn't you ask yourself, why am I getting agitated? Why is it bothering me? Why are you being annoyed that you're annoyed? Balaji? Why are you disturbed that you're disturbed? Or you lost your peace? It disturbs you. At the point where you lost your peace, you are not agitated. Means you don't think about it. But when that agitation lasts, you can't hold on to that agitation anymore. Why can't you hold on to the agitation anymore? It is not your natural state. It is not where you belong. So there is every attempt to get out of it. We may not be doing the right things to get out of it. So what happens? Something else agitates you. Something else knocks you off balance. So you get back to this Kurukshetra again. You've lost your peace. But every attempt to get back to yourself is an indication that where we are now is not our natural state. And the moment you reach your natural state, you're most comfortable. You are with yourself. No problem. And what is the state when you have lost your real self is captured in the 55th mantra of chapter 2.
श्रीभगवानुवाच प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान् आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते श्रीभगवानुवाच प्रजहाति यदा कामान् सर्वान् पार्थमनोगतान् आत्मन्येवात्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञस्तदोच्यते.
Very, very famous verse. This verse is taken from the section called describing a man of enlightenment, a sthita prajna. Who is a sthita prajna? In the 54th verse, the previous verse, Arjuna asks 4 questions. So Krishna starts answering, who is that man of perfection? So here he is answering the first question. Ka bhasha, what is the description? Who is a man of perfection? So the blessed Lord said, when one completely casts off upartha, all desires of the mind, and is satisfied in the self, by the self, then is one said to be of steady wisdom. So there are 2 aspects to the verse. One is negative side of it, the second is the positive side of it. The first half he says, the negative side, one completely casts off all desires of the mind. So, as I've just mentioned in the previous verse, the sign of having lost your real nature is, what is the sign of having lost our nature? What is born out of that? In fact, it is very well explained in the next 2 verses we are going to do. We lead up to that. The whole, see, when I am full, I am paripurna. He says that's your original nature.